Well, I bring greetings from Atlanta with a funny way of talking. And it's a real pleasure to be back in England. You should maybe understand that I speak as an industrialist. Some would say a radical industrialist, but as competitive as anyone you know and as profit-minded as anyone you know. So before I begin to give you my point of view on the future of humankind, maybe you'd like to know how I, an industrialist, came to this point of view. The birthing of a new company from scratch had been a frightening experience, especially when one's life savings had been put at risk. One's two daughters had been teenagers, the older just 2 years away from college. And one had left the security of a perfectly good job with a perfectly good company to bet the farm on this new product idea. You can appreciate one would have developed a very special attachment to this third child after one's two natural daughters. And one would care a great deal about what this child would grow up to be. Very naturally, a sense of legacy would be working away in one's subconscious, if not one's conscious mind. But now in your 61st year, the business has succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. It's 21 years old now. It's a public company doing business in 100 countries with manufacturing on 4 continents. It's come through 3 major recessions, including that startup recession, and it's on its 3rd leg up. Sales are approaching $1 billion a year. It and you are a success by anybody's standard definition of success. How then would you, in this position, have reacted if you had begun to hear from your sales force a strange new question from your customers to whom you had learned to listen very, very carefully 20 years before looking at that empty order book? The question, what's your company doing for the environment? 2 of my managers approached me with the assertion that our sales force is begging for answers. What are we doing for the environment? What are our environmental policies? And they suggest convening a new task force of people from our businesses around the world to come together to assess our company's environmental practices, to begin to frame some answers for those customers. Sounds good to me, I say, go for it. Then the showstopper, they say, we want you to address this new task force, give it a kickoff speech, and launch it with your environmental vision. What? What environmental vision? In my whole life, I have never given one thought to what I or my company are taking from the earth or doing to the earth. I do not have an environmental vision. I don't want to make that speech. I cannot get beyond we obey the law, comply. So I drag my feet, but they stay on my case, and finally I relent and agree to speak. The date is set, August 31, 1994. Come the middle of August, I have not a clue as to what to say, but I know comply is not a vision. I am sweating. It's a propitious moment. And at that very moment, a book lands on my desk. It's come by a circuitous route. A young woman in Seattle, Washington, working for the state of Washington's Environmental Protection Department, hears a guy speak, likes what he has to say, buys his book. After reading it, she sends it to her mother, a sales manager for a carpet tile company who has had to endure and relay the message, interface just doesn't get it, and has also had to choke on her CEO's response, interface doesn't get what. The book is about what? She sends it to her CEO, me. It lands on my desk at that propitious moment. It is entitled, The Ecology of Commerce. Its author is Paul Hawken. I've never heard of him. It's pure serendipity. Without a clue as to what is in it, I start to thumb it. On page 19, I come to an arresting chapter heading, The Death of Birth. I begin to read. On page 25, I find the full meaning of the chapter heading and encounter 4 terms I have never before heard mentioned together in one paragraph: carrying capacity, overshoot, collapse, and extinction. That is the death of birth, species disappearing, never ever to be born again. Reading this for the first time nearly 11 years ago, I knew it was a metaphor for the earth and humankind. It was an epiphanal moment, a spear in the chest. I read on and I was dumbfounded by how much I did not know about the environment and about the impacts of the industrial system on the environment, the industrial system of which I and my successful company were an integral part. A new definition of success began to creep into my consciousness, and the latent sense of legacy asserted itself. I got it. I was a plunderer of earth, and that is not the legacy one wants to leave behind. I wept. Hawken made the central point of his book in 3 parts. 1, the living systems, the life support systems of Earth that together make up the biosphere are in decline. We are degrading the biosphere. Unchecked, it will continue to decline, and we will lose the biosphere. It contains and supports all of life. Secondly, the biggest culprit in this decline is the industrial system, the linear take, make, waste industrial system, driven by fossil fuel-derived energy, wasteful and abusive. And 3, the only institution on earth that is large enough, powerful enough, wealthy enough, pervasive enough, and influential enough to lead humankind out of the mess that it's making for itself is the same institution that's doing the most damage, the institution of business and industry, my institution, and for many, if not most of you, your institution as well. I took that message to heart. I made that speech, drawing shamelessly on Hawken's material. I challenged that tiny gathering of people, only about 16 or 17, to lead our company to sustainability, which we defined as eventually operating our petro-intensive company, that is for energy and materials, in such a way as to eventually take nothing from the earth that's not naturally and rapidly renewable, not another fresh drop of oil, and to do no harm to the biosphere. I just stunned that little group of people, shocked myself with the challenge, and I found myself, for myself, a whole new purpose in life in my 61st year. For nearly 11 years now, we have been on this mission. Now let me share with you the larger meaning I've discovered in these 10-plus years of near total immersion in this new paradigm. During these years, I've acquired a deep understanding of what Hawken was saying in his book, that we're losing the biosphere that supports us and some 30 million other species that share the planet. It's a very, very long-term trend. I asked myself, and I've asked myself for nearly 11 years, how would a living planet, the rarest, the most precious thing in the universe, lose its biosphere, its livability? We take it for granted, and we don't want to believe that it's even possible to lose it. But if we think about it, we know that if Earth someday, in the distant future, has lost its livability, its biosphere, it will have happened insidiously, one silted or polluted stream at a time, one polluted river at a time, one collapsing fish stock at a time, one dying coral reef at a time, one decimated old-growth forest at a time, one lost habitat at a time, one disappearing acre of rainforest at a time, and one more ton of spent nuclear fuel at a time, looking for a safe and secure home for 240,000 years. One songbird at a time, one PCB-laced orca, one whale, one dolphin, one trumpeter swan, one mountain gorilla, one polar bear, one leatherneck turtle at a time, one entire wild species at a time, and of course, one poverty-stricken, starving, diseased, or exploited human being at a time. That's how it would have happened. And we know that it is happening already just that way. It is a long, long, slippery slope, and we are on it. And that is the first trend. We're losing one strand of the web of life at a time inexorably, and it will not stop until either we Homo sapiens come to our senses, or we too are gone and can do no more damage. If we do come to our senses in time, that will happen one changed mind at a time. Not only does ecology tell us that we are part of nature, not above it, not outside it, it also tells us that what we do to the web of life, we do to ourselves. Industrial ecology tells us the industrial system as it operates today simply cannot go on and on and on, taking, making, wasting, abusing the web of life. Really, with people everywhere aspiring to our standards of living, that cannot go on and on and on in a finite world. And it is finite. You can see it from space, that's it, there isn't any more. The rate of industrial throughput is now endangering prosperity as much, if not more, than enhancing it. So let me just close with a personal experience, another episode in my story, and introduce you to the person who's really at risk here. Here's what Glenn Thomas wrote, and here's the person I want you to meet. Tomorrow's child. Without a name and unseen face and knowing not your time or place. Tomorrow's child, though yet unborn, I met you first last Tuesday morning. A wise friend introduced us to, and through his sobering point of view, I saw a day that you would see, a day for you, but not for me. Knowing you has changed my thinking, for I never had an inkling that perhaps the things I do might someday somehow threaten you. Tomorrow's child, my daughter, son, I'm afraid I've just begun to think of you and of your good, though always having known I should. Begin I will to weigh the cost of what I squander, what is lost if ever I forget that you will someday come and live here too. Well, folks, every day of my life, tomorrow's child has spoken to me, getting me up, getting me going with a very simple but profound message, which I would presume to share with you also. That is that we are each and every one part of the web of life, the continuum of humanity for sure, yeah, but also in a larger sense, the web of life itself. And we have a choice to make during our brief visit to this beautiful planet, to hurt it or to help it. And for every human being, it's her or his individual choice, as it's your choice. I think the fact that you're here suggests that you've made the choice to help. And I thank you for that and for this privilege.